I'm Fatheree.
This is Dave.
This is Trent.
This is Brian.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Take me down to a paradise city where a cat is a stripper that has 3 titties. Oh, won't you please take me down? Yeah.
Brian, how'd we end up in this podcast?
I don't know.
So howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the Starship, Texas for the 73rd Tex-Trek podcast, your home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas. And tonight we are talking about the beloved genius.
You know what? Amongst our comments, there's fans. There's definitely fans.
Fair enough.
It has not experienced the revival that Trek the Motion Picture has, but there are fans.
Time will come.
Can I say the name of this masterpiece?
No.
It is William Shatner's Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
Magnum opus.
How did we end up in this podcast?
Oh, that's not the last time you'll ask yourself that, my friend.
I think it should have William Shatner's name in it. That'd be kind of cool.
It's like you can't escape this. You have to take ownership of it. To be fair, I think he has acknowledged that it is a flawed movie.
Show them what you did.
But so just to give like a little bit of the backstory of what went into making this was Leonard Nimoy successfully directed the previous 2 Trek movies with Star Trek 3 and Star Trek 4. He used that as a part of his negotiations to come back for Star Trek 3 was he wanted to direct. So part of the negotiations to get Shatner to come back for Star Trek 4 was that if there was a Star Trek 5, he wanted to direct. And I also heard that there is a clause in Nimoy and Shatner's contracts that if either of them got something, it had to be offered to the other one also. Mm-hmm. So this is the product of that arrangement. You
said that like back in at once upon a time in TOS era that Shatner was on the verge of doing some directing. Had the series continued?
If the series had continued, he was going to start directing there, and he did do some directing on T.J. Hooker, and he also directed some stage stuff. So this isn't exactly his directorial debut, but it was his first, and it wasn't his only movie. I think he did something else after this, didn't he?
What if he directed Star Trek? What if he directed Star Trek 5 for the stage? Just think about it. The budget would be pretty cose.
Yep.
It would have been the best play since Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark.
Yeah.
It did feel very stagey.
But this movie obviously was viewed as a big failure. There were a few factors going into that. It came out in 1989, a huge year for movies. It had Tim Burton's Batman.
Right.
And anyone alive back then will tell you that was a huge deal. That was probably the biggest blockbuster that wasn't a Star Wars movie up to that point.
Yeah. There's not too many, I think, sort of landmark years that I quite remember like that, but Jurassic Park and a handful of others.
Well, Jurassic Park wasn't in 89.
No, I know, but
I'm
talking about before and after too. But yeah, that was for sure a big one.
You also had Lethal Weapon 2, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Indiana Jones 3, and it was so busy, in fact, that Industrial Light and Magic had to tell Paramount, hey, we're too busy, we cannot do the special effects for the Star Trek movie. So the effects went to a very subpar effects house, and that didn't work out too well.
Nope.
There was also a writer's strike in 88. But that also...
I would strike too if they said I had to work with Shatner.
well, it really affected the shooting schedule of this, and it does sound like Shatner kind of blew the budget early on in production, and the studio kind of lost faith that this movie was salvageable, and so when he asked them for more money, they refused. Mm-hmm. So what we got was Star Trek V.
Speaking of, I think you've mentioned, the Last Crusade, Indiana Jones 3. It wasn't, Sean Connery supposed to be Sybok or something?
That is true, yes. He was supposed to be
man?
The brother of Spock. And the comment that I always hear when people talk about that is, it would have been really awkward if you had a guy named Sean Connery talking about something called Shakari.
Well, I think Shakari was actually, that was a reference to getting Sean Connery. That was a deliberate.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think when they what I heard was when they couldn't get Sean Connery, that's when Shakari became kind of a thing.
That's weird.
That's what I heard.
Here's the thing. I actually, I don't remember that. Who's the name of the actor who played Sybok?
I want to say Lawrence Luckbill or something.
Oh, yeah, it's kind of an odd name.
Something like that.
I actually think he's one of the stronger roles in it, and he does a lot of work with it. I don't know that I would have, Sean Connery, of course, would have brought something to it, but Sean Connery, the Vulcan, seems a little chilly.
You've taken the first steps.
Not as
silly, the next together.
But not as silly as Zardoz.
Shared it with me. So I in a weird way, I think I'm glad that they got the guy they did. It's one of the stronger points in the movie. A movie which I should say I liked more on revisit than I expected to. Flaws, warts and all.
Well, you probably couldn't have liked it any less.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been so long since I'd seen it. I don't think I might have hated it.
This was the first movie I saw in the theater.
Yeah.
The first Star Trek
Star Trek
movie I saw in the theater. I'd seen a handful of cartoons and stuff, and
yet your fandom continues.
Well, yeah, I had just become a Star Trek fan in the last 2 or 3 years, and I was so excited I was going to get to see a Star Trek movie in the theater, and it was going to be amazing. And I was a teenager, and I went there and I watched it, and I came out and I thought, that did not impress me. Boy, I must not be the Star Trek fan I thought I was.
What's wrong with me?
There's something wrong with me because I thought that would really blow me away, and that was just kind of okay.
May I suggest being an older person and your first movie being Wrath of Khan?
Yes.
I will die sooner, but I got to see Wrath of Khan as my first movie in the theater.
Yes, no, that was definitely the way to go. I need to get a time machine and go talk to my parents about this. So.
Well, I'm just going to refresh our audience out there in case you haven't rewatched this recently, and just give a quick rundown of the movie's story, what we call the Transwarp summary here at Tex-Trek.
Let's hit it.
Our movie begins with Captain Kirk enjoying the great outdoors on a camping trip with Spock and Dr. McCoy. But their R&R is cut short when Admiral Bob orders the brand spanking new Enterprise A on a mission. There's trouble in the neutral zone, and the Enterprise is the only ship in range. Even though none of the systems on the new ship seem to be working right, there should be plenty of Starfleet ships between Earth and the neutral zone, and the fact that the Enterprise only has a skeleton crew of 60-year-olds. But Admiral Bob says they're the only ship for the job. So the crew set course for Nimbus 3. Advertised as the planet of galactic peace, but actually looks like a shithole full of galactic lowlives. It is a neutral home of ambassadors from the Federation, Klingon Empire, and Romulan Star Empire. A renegade Vulcan named Sybok, who is very un-Vulcan-y in that he is a laughing space hippie on some kind of religious crusade, leads a band of followers and takes control of Paradise City on Nimbus 3. From there, he holds the ambassadors hostage. So the Enterprise shows up to rescue the hostages, but instead our heroes get captured by Sybok, who comes on board their ship and takes over the entire crew. He possesses the ability to see people's deepest inner pain, and through his own brand of Vulcan telepathy, he can grant an individual the power to overcome their pain and become his grateful servants on his holy mission. And bombshell, it turns out that he's Spock's brother. Well, half-brother. Now that Sybok is in control of the ship, he explains that his plan is to fly to the center of the galaxy, where he expects to meet God in paradise. Or Shakari, as he calls it. However, Kirk, Spock, and Dr. McCoy all manage to resist Sybok's spell and maintain their free will. Sybok is still running the show, and the Enterprise proceeds to the Great Barrier at the center of the galaxy. The ship crosses the barrier while being pursued by a Klingon bird of prey on their own crusade to assassinate their enemy, Captain Kirk. On the other side of the barrier, there is, in fact, a planet. Sybok accompanies Kirk, Spock, and Bones down to the planet's surface, and instead of finding Loughery, they find a bunch of purple rocks in the desert. But God himself shows up, or some godlike space entity, in the form of a big blue glowing space head. The self-proclaimed God turns out to be pretty evil and demands the Enterprise be brought closer so that this wicked, non-corporeal life form might escape from the center of the galaxy and roam the stars freely. Sybok, seeing the error of his ways, sacrifices himself so that the others can escape. The Enterprise rains down some torpedo fire on the so-called God, and Spock even ends up in the Klingon bird of prey, shooting disruptors at the Almighty, and apparently commits deicide, slaying this false god. But this is not anywhere near as cool as it sounds. In fact, it's all kind of lame and anticlimactic. We end with Kirk saying that maybe God is in the human heart, and the three friends return to Earth to continue their camping trip. The end.
You know, if Sybok had survived, he probably could have been like a, great healer in the galaxy.
Yeah, I feel like he probably would have needed to do some time in a penal colony, but I'm a believer in rehabilitation.
I think Sybok was very rehabilitatable. So
Kirk just like turned loose like there's the epic level war criminal. He gave him a paradise planet at the time. Sybok could get one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
honestly, think about it. You're a green planet with lush trees and fruit trees, and all of Sybok's followers coming from that desert planet agreeing to go with him. They would absolutely be trading up.
Yeah, they would do anything to get off of that planet.
Yeah.
But we're just gonna quickly just like go through the movie and break it down in more detail. But we do have that opening at the very beginning. The movie actually starts on Nimbus 3 in the desert. And I gotta say, like, I actually remember like watching this the first time, and I thought, I didn't know what I was walking into here, but it was a kind of like an enticing opening. It really like grabbed my attention. You have that cool shot of Sybok riding up on a horse. It didn't feel Star Trek-ish at all, so I was very curious.
It looks like Lawrence of Arabia, where he's all slow motion on a horse. Like, he looks like some epic leader or, shaman.
Borderline pretentious, I would say, but...
Borderline?
And then
I don't know if slow motion makes it pretentious.
When the whole farmer sees Sybok laugh, and it is like, oh my god, what's going on? There's a laughing Vulcan. What could this mean?
I thought he was a Romulan.
See, that actually makes more sense to think that.
I think at the time, though, I knew that like they're not going to like show somebody with pointed ears without explaining it's a Romulan. They're going to assume the audience will think it's Vulcan.
My only complaint with that beginning is that the whole farmer like seems like a real guy who's just like incredibly desperate and like I believe like, oh yeah, this guy could be dangerous. Like he looks like he's on like the verge of death. I don't really know what he's looking for water. I guess I don't know. But then like he turns into like a simpleton who kind of comes off as a little bit of like a special needs.
I don't think his desperation, his dangerous desperation, is necessarily in opposition to him being a simple guy.
No, just like his reaction to seeing like Sybok smile, like that's what like I thought when I was watching this.
I don't think anybody on that planet smiled. It definitely looked like a wasted shithole.
Well, he smiled, and you see like his like meth mouth, all like missing teeth.
Do you know who that guy is, by the way? He was in like the original. What is it? Not Last House on the Left. What's the Wes Craven mutants thing? The Hills.
Oh, the Hills Have Eyes.
Hills Have Eyes. Yeah, he was one of those mutants, and quasi reprised his mutant role in Weird Science as the mutant bikers who show up.
He looks like somebody like the movie starts out pretty strong. Like you've got the like some kind of Mad Max kind of thing going on, and you've got.
I thought it was the gyrocopter pilot from Mad Max. By the way, who's like Bruce, whatever his name is, Stern, whatever his name is, who's in all the Mad Max stuff. But yeah, you were saying.
No, you got this guy. He looks like he's gonna give you like a side quest in a Fallout game, and it starts really cool. You got this slow motion horse, and then I mean, I don't know what happens after that. Things kind of take a turn very south.
The horses are unicorns.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which is... Yeah, they actually have like a horn on their head. Yeah.
How did I not notice
I
that?
did like the revisionist idea of we'll make the ugliest, most desperate, most pathetic unicorn ever. I kind of like the idea, the creativity of they are unicorns, but they're also the ugliest blue horses you've ever seen.
Yeah, that's as good as it gets on the planet Nimbus 3.
The horses just come from Shatner being a big fan of horses, and he does like competitive riding and stuff.
Yeah.
If he actually loves to talk about horses. If you ever talk to him in person, he'll go on about it all day. But they had to make it look like a space horse, so that's how you end up with a horse painted blue with a horn glued to its head.
People who like horses don't just kinda like horses.
No casual horse fans out there.
So I'll say this. One of the things I overall kind of like about the movie is that it's a little unpredictable at times, and a lot of that kind of comes from Sybok. And so, as openers go, a lot of times you kind of establish the bad guy. They'll go and kill a whole bunch of people or something, so they mean business. I kind of like that this guy shows up and it looks like it's going to be some kind of violent clash or something like that, and instead he's this kind of charismatic recruiter, really.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's pretty cool. Admittedly, the movie does take a hard turn downward after that, but I do find that some of that spirit infuses a few other scenes and elevates them a little bit for me.
I would actually say the movie is watchable right up until about the point where Kirk and Spock get captured by Sybok.
See, and
I would say that's about where we start going from a watchable film to something.
I actually think it breaks down a little bit before that, but let's get.
Well, I may be in opposition to that too when we get to that, but yeah, we can take it in order.
Let's get off of Nimbus 3 and talk about Yosemite and the camping stuff. And
the iconic scene of the movie in a lot of ways.
The rock climbing.
The jet boots.
Yes.
Man, those jet boots are cheesy as fuck.
Yeah.
There's no
I wish
reason.
I had a pair, but...
There should be boots like that in the 23rd century.
That's fair.
The fact that we never see anything like that in Star Trek again is actually kind of annoys me. Because they should have that.
You know what that feels like to me, though? It feels like on Star Trek Discovery when they just invent a really weird technology that seems so out of place and doesn't make sense. Here's some repair R2-D2s on the Enterprise and Discovery.
See, I like that too. I like the repair R2-D2s.
I don't like that.
So, you just would not want them to be just discarded. You're like, go and use it again.
Yeah,
make it a thing.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea that these boots exist. Were they used in a reasonable way in this film? No. But I do think that that's something Starfleet should be able to cobble together as an easy way for their away teams to, say, fly up. Why can't we, 23rd century, should have figured that out.
You know what bugged me more about that scene was honestly Spock, rather out of character, annoying the shit out of Kirk when he really did need to pay attention to things.
You almost killed him.
I'm like, it established that there will be some jokiness to this movie, and since Trek 3, we're getting progressively more kind of jokey familial quality whenever the lead big three together, and also the supporting cast. So it fit that, but dude could have actually died.
As we're always going to go back to this the novelization actually has a rock breaking off in Kirk's hand, and that's what causes him to fall, because the novelist did not want Spock to be guilty of causing Kirk to fall.
Yeah.
Interesting point is that Spock says that the mountain, El Capitan's record is in no danger of being broken. Yeah. But at the time this came out, no one had actually climbed that. But someone has recently.
Okay. Free climbed it.
Free climbed it, yes. So there is now a record of climbing it.
All right.
Y'all buy Shatner scaling mountains?
Shatner, no. Kirk, sure. Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Kirk climbs the mountains. I have no doubt.
Yeah, I didn't have any particular issue with it, but it is a little bit funny. What do they call it when you climb it without rope and stuff?
That free climbing.
Free climbing, yes.
Yeah, or at least that's what they called it in the movies. So.
And then Dr. McCoy watching, they reuse a joke from the original series where he talks to himself about talking to himself. Mm-hmm. Where he in the Carbomite maneuver, he has the line, if I jumped every time a light was flashing around here, I'd end up talking to myself. Or something like that.
Was that a deliberate callback in any way, or just...
No, I'm sure. But yeah, they are trying to really write a lot of gags and stuff. And that's another reason why I think the movie disappointed was because it did get too campy. But Paramount wanted a comical Star Trek because Star Trek 4 was so successful.
And
They
a
wanted
lot of
to
the
do that
gags
again.
are not funny.
Yeah.
Say what you want about stupid Chekhov on the Enterprise aircraft carrier. At least it's funny.
Do you want to talk about like stupid Chekhov, like him and Sulu when they're walking around Yosemite and their little? We seem to be caught in a blizzard. Oh my!
Yeah, I get, this is sort of a tradition that seems to go. It happened with a lot of movie franchises where characters that are really very competent become progressively more campy. Now, the one I'm thinking of right now is the Raiders or the Indiana Jones series, where like Marcus and Sala in the third one can't find their way out of what town are they in? Wherever they are, and they are just as lost as Chekhov and Sulu are in this. And I'm like, man, and Marcus and like Sala were both on the ball in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and now they're doofuses.
Yeah.
I guess it's just we're like buddies with them now, and we kind of don't want it to be too serious.
It also bugged me when Uhura says that the scanners show that it's 70 degrees. Because she should have been using Celsius instead of Fahrenheit.
Well, that's stupid of you, but...
Yeah. What do y'all think about like the B-story of the movie? The Klingon who's out there shooting space trash and decides he wants to be the one to kill Kirk.
So Captain Claw is...
I like how wiry he is.
He's a pretty
He's like always perpetually like this.
He's a very lame villain. And
Yes.
he just comes off as like, here's a generic default Klingon with no motivation except he's a bad guy and knows he's a bad guy and he's here to fight the good guys.
Yeah, his motivation's terrible.
It rises and falls with that. It kind of comes off... That's kind of how I feel about Darth Maul and the Phantom Menace. Except that was presented better than this was.
Well, yeah, Darth Maul is clearly supposed to be a kind of dark threat in the shadows. We're not supposed to understand him. Claws...
there's no mystery there.
Yeah.
And I thought this was interesting because, like, I always assumed he was played by a black guy or some actor of color. But if you actually, like, look at him, like, outside the Klingon makeup in 1989, like, what do he look like? He is, like, a super blonde California beach boy.
So they staying true to the 60s tradition, they kind of black-faced him?
They did.
Brown-faced them.
Yeah.
Most Klingons are played by Caucasian actors.
Sure. Christopher Lloyd, very notably in the third one.
But they didn't brown-face Lloyd quite to the same level.
They don't always like darken their skin like they did this guy.
Yeah.
He does look good. They have like a pretty Klingonish looking Klingon, but there's like zero depth there. He is by far like I don't really count him as like the main villain of this movie. I think Sybok is the main villain.
Yeah. I get that they may not want to like invest that much in him because the more interesting stuff is happening, I think, with Sybok and his quest. But if you're gonna have a side villain, they should be more memorable. That's all.
Yeah.
They just for sure drop the ball.
Yeah, but our characters are recruited from their little camping trip. Their marshmallow roast is interrupted.
Right. Before we talk about the recruitment though, like that scene is pretty iconic of them sitting around shooting the breeze. Kirk saying that he expects to die alone. It's kind of I always kind of liked that bit. It's kind of melancholy and sentimental at the same time, but it sort of seems to fit him. I don't know. What did you guys think?
I like the camping scene.
Yeah,
I've always disliked the I always knew I was going to die alone type thing. That always
you just don't think he would be a fatalist like that, or think he can see the future.
I have a hard time seeing like why someone would be like that convinced that they knew they were going to die alone, and I don't know. That
in a way
it sounds
silly. It sounds like a writer's convention, so that in the end they can come back to it and make you get that sense of full circle that writers always want.
Yeah, but that's really artificial,
right?
I liked it just because it was not what I was expecting Kirk to say, and it's nice to see somebody in this movie do something unpredictable.
Right.
So,
and I do think there's something of a tradition of like with that whole captain going down with the ship. There's a certain kind of existential fatalist quality in ship captains and stories. It's kind of got a bit of a tradition, and it sounds like he's kind of tapping into that when he does it. So I kind of like it, even as I recognize, it's pretty artificial too.
Does he die alone? I mean,
no, he doesn't.
He's got
like that doesn't even happen.
That doesn't even.
They bring it up in this one movie and then drop it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he's not an actual prophet in that sense, so that's probably okay.
He's also
Since,
a
if
guy-
anything, this movie is about destroying spiritualism with Klingon disruptors.
He's also a guy who faces death regularly over the course of decades, and this is only a thing he talks about one time.
Well, yeah,
Not
the
the
movie's...
sort of thing he's going to bring up, though. It's clearly a...
With as much as he's put in danger, with as much as like he's had to face death, like I agree. Like a lot of times, like I'll give stuff a pass. I'll be like, well, yeah, they might have that in a conversation off screen or something. I'm like, no, I'm not buying it on the like. He's so like convinced of it here.
It's because he's getting older. I think he's meditating more on it.
Kind of
because of
I
that.
guess.
Now, again, they could have revealed that. He could have even said something. He's like maybe, I didn't used to think this way, but, I've been having some darker thoughts lately, and I think I'm going to die alone. If he had said something like that, they would have had a kind of a little context for it.
Yeah. I think in a better movie,
right?
I'm Gonna Die Alone would have been one of the gems of that film. And I still think it's one of the unpolished, very few unpolished gems embedded in this turd.
I agree. I agree.
I think Kirk ought to be a more rational guy and know better to know that he can't predict his death.
Star Trek 3, the Admiral says that his career stands for rationality, not...
and that's why he waits until Star Trek 5 to mention this one bit of irrationality.
Yeah.
He's clearly kept it hidden the whole time from his best friends.
He has seen some stuff at that point. He's seen Spock's Katra go from one person to another. He's seen some crazy religious stuff.
And you know what else bugs me?
He's seen resurrections.
In that campfire scene is that bourbon and Tennessee whiskey are two different things. They should know that.
Yeah, you have been making a pretty good case that McCoy doesn't know anything about alcohol.
Yeah, in the original series, he calls a mint julep a Georgia mint julep, but mint juleps are supposed to have bourbon, which comes from Kentucky. But maybe in the future, Kentucky and Georgia merge or something. We don't know.
Yeah, you should headcanon that for sure, Fatheree.
But also, the marshmallow. How you can have a guy say marshmelon with an N on it and not explain why he's saying that?
Well, yeah, that was part of the deleted scene.
I know, but you can't leave that. You gotta redub that.
Yeah, it does seem like that could have been redubbed.
Get Nimoy in the ADR booth for 10 seconds to say marshmallow.
Yes,
marshmallow. Get 2 takes of it.
Yeah.
I have this feeling that maybe they asked him and he's like, no, I'm done with the movie.
No, Shatner, you shit in the bed, you get to sit in it.
You with your marshmallows, Shatner. Marshmallow.
He shat in it.
Yeah. Everyone watching this movie is kind of getting shat on.
No.
Certainly, by the way, this is just a small thing. Their wardrobe and hair. They've off mic. We were talking about this a few days ago. Everybody looks kind of bad in this.
Yeah, this is the first time where all the actors really look old.
But also Spock's haircut looks bad.
Spock is a little pudgy. This is the only time where Leonard Nimoy doesn't look skinny. He looks a little pudgy.
Yeah, somehow, and I also think it's just the lighting kind of has a cheaper quality that the sets obviously do.
So we should talk about on the Enterprise when they do come back up to the ship.
Yep.
And then we have this bugs me too is the weird relationship between Uhura and Scotty that it's never been brought up before, and then here it's very overt, and then it just gets dropped and goes away. That's awkward.
Again, I kind of like the idea of it. I think they should. The fact that they don't run with it in Star Trek 6 kind of kills it. And makes it a problem rather than an asset. But these people have clearly chosen to spend the rest of their lives together on this starship and not settle down and have families. So why would they not hook up? Since this is the only people that are going to understand the shit they've seen, and what they've been through, we keep hyping that they're supposed to be families, and yet it's impossible that Scotty and Uhura might flirt with each other.
Now, are we only talking about the scene after Sybok had put the whammy on him?
No. When they first come up to the Enterprise, they're being real flirty with each other.
Right. He's working on something, and she comes over to him.
Yeah, they talk about
chit-chatting.
spending their leave together.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember Nichelle Nichols saying in an interview that when she saw the script, she called James Doohan. She was like, "Oh my God, Jimmy, this is so ridiculous! Can they believe that they think these characters would do this?" But she was kind of laughing about it. But yeah, so it's just really awkward to just drop on us This movie is supposed to take place like immediately after the previous movie.
Yeah.
I don't know whose idea this was, but the way that they execute it is really awkward. And I don't even think it's like I get why y'all are saying like maybe it could work. You know, these two characters know each other for a long time, but I don't know. It still feels awkward to me. If it was gonna work, I needed it to like sell me on like why they would all of a sudden develop this chemistry.
And there's no payoff at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
We don't see them like arm in arm or something in the last scene.
I think it was just kind of what I think the writers thought it'd be cute.
So,
that's about it.
So there.
By the way, they're on the bridge right when the call comes through, and they're like, "Red alert! There's hostages." Yeah. Whoever is on the bridge, make the call or whatever, and recruit them. Like they don't necessarily send it to somebody who would be probably the obvious decision maker on these, or the Admiralty. Or
I guess they tried to call Kirk, couldn't get a hold of Kirk. Figured Kirk must be on the Enterprise. We'll call the Enterprise. I mean, it makes a certain amount of sense.
Yeah, because he said it like he didn't take his communicator,
and neither did.
I just figured
Spock,
there's bases, like there's big bases with like higher ups and stuff. I don't know.
we get that phone call between Admiral Bob and Shatner and Kirk. The Admiral was played by Harv Bennett.
Oh,
that's right. His one Trek cameo. It's the only time he cameoed, right?
I believe so, yes. And you might want to explain a little about who Harv Bennett is. So
Harv Bennett was really the shepherd of the Star Trek movies from Star Trek 2 until this one.
Yeah. And
he's largely responsible for, I think, the longevity of the franchise and why it didn't die after the motion picture sequel. He was also very responsible for the stories that they were telling in Star Trek's 2 and 3 and 4, and has writing credits on those. With Star Trek 5, he was trying to appease Shatner and make sure that this movie does get made, does come out, and sadly, this was the last Star Trek movie that he was involved in, because he was he did some really quality work, and the franchise owes him a lot. And I kind of feel like today he doesn't get enough appreciation. But this was the movie where he actually showed his face on screen and was his final one. So it kind of sucks that this is what he went out on.
Yeah.
It's his Raul Julia Street Fighter moment.
But also, as we're talking about like the Enterprise, they take off to go on this mission. It really sucks to have another crippled Enterprise for no good reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Is this right? 6 movies in a row of the Enterprise being in some kind of substandard state?
Well,
5 movies.
Yeah, but that doesn't really happen in Star Trek 4 because they're not really on the Enterprise until the end. But the Bird of Prey is crippled when the dilithium crystals are...
Their ship is still
drained.
Yes.
And whatever ship they're in, they wreck it.
It works every time. Like, I got some issues with the motion picture, but compared to this, that works. Like, this comes off as really weird, and it just feels like so...
It's like they decided it was a tradition at that point.
Yeah.
It's such a contrivance to say that you're the only ship in range. And you're the only ship who can go on this mission, and it has to be you, Kirk.
They made one concession in saying that I think they said there were other ships in range, but nobody who's got nobody who's you,
Captain.
Yeah.
So we will send you on this shipwrecking ship that doesn't even have a transporters or a proper crew, rather than the Excelsior parked right next to your ship.
Well, of course, Kirk is always known for rescuing hostages.
Put Kirk on the Excelsior and send that ship.
Yeah.
But
it's almost like they didn't think it all through.
I mean, yeah. And they tell Kirk, whatever you do, don't start a military incident. Don't get,
He hears, I'm going to open up a can of whoop ass.
And as soon as he arrives, shall we try negotiating? No, I'm going to take an away team down there. We're going to shoot them all, motherfuckers, and bust our hostages out. Let's go!
Yeah, because Shatner wanted to be an action hero.
I know, but why put the line in there? Don't start a confrontation or whatever the line was. If you're just going to have Kirk completely ignore those orders out of the gate without justifying.
You got to show he's a maverick. I agree, it's dumb, but this is kind of like Shatner's vanity piece.
Also, all the Trek movies, for better or worse, they almost all try and portray the crew as mavericks.
Well, yes, and then it turns out to be the wrong thing to do. Sybok was trying to avoid getting people killed, and some people might have... We don't know, did all of those security people survive? Did Kirk actually get some people killed by disobeying orders?
I'll say this, though. Like, when we get the hostage video on the Enterprise that Sybok makes to show them to get a ship to come and fall into his trap...
Yeah.
That's always come off to me as like very like well directed. The way that Sybok is like purposefully walking towards the camera, like giving his demands.
It's a little more handheld camera cinema verite than you usually get. More like, I guess, more like a sort of a, not like a real hostage video, but a like, it has the feeling of it, that verisimilitude.
Yeah, it has the feeling that the director had no idea what they were doing when they shot that sequence. It works perfectly.
I don't even think it feels like a real hostage video, because I don't think you would actually do that. But it does come off with like a some type of like authenticity to it.
Yeah. Right, he has kind of a more dramatically mounting presence as he kind of wanders towards the camera and stuff.
And there are some good shots. Like I love like when they're camping, like the camera like pans over and you see like the owl in the foreground, and then the three of them camping in the background. They're like, so there's like some well constructed shots. I don't know if it was Shatner, if it was the director of photography working on this, but...
And we talked about the opening, being
it makes me wish this movie had a better script, because I think there could have been... There
actually
could have been something good
the germ of the idea of this, of a sort of radical prophet seeking God, and and all of that stuff, even though the barrier at the center of the universe is ridiculous, that's kind of within Trek ridiculous norms.
That's more ridiculous than Star. The fact that they can go.
Well, they had like a barrier at the edge of the galaxy or whatever in the first episode, right?
They've never like gone 24,000 light years in an afternoon.
Oh yeah,
like that should have taken decades.
Yeah,
right. But they could have.
I would say I think they shot themselves in the foot with the quest for God. A Messiah character who rallies an army of refugees, captures the Enterprise on a quest for something else might have worked. I think there was no way to pay off the quest for God in a way that was going to work. You need something else at the end.
I actually kind of like how it plays out, to be honest. I don't think it's like obviously it could have been much better, but maybe it's because I like what the message it's sending. That in spiritual circles, you are very often going to find a manipulator at the top. I feel like...
but it's applied with, like, blunt force brick.
I think the fact that he is sincere about it the whole time, and he himself is not a villain, is what makes it interesting to me. Yeah. I like sort of Sybok's sincerity. And
his sincerity. His I just want him to be chasing something better.
I think that's worthy of a movie. I think it's worthy of a movie and could have been, in better hands, a stronger thing.
What I would have liked is if Loughery didn't happen in, like, the middle of the movie. Like, we find out, now it's a quest for God. Like, maybe halfway through the movie is the first time we get a sense that he's on a mission of some sort. To my recollection, they don't really mention that he is specifically looking for this Eden God kind of thing specifically until we're pretty much halfway through the second act.
It's like the...
I mean, I think they did deliberately want him to be kind of mysterious.
I could have seen, like, at the turn at, like, the end of the first act, or just where it's not just kind of awkward, where you're like, okay, we're doing something very different than what we were just doing, 10 minutes ago. We do have this kind of radical religious guy, he's on this mission, and then it just kind of drops in the middle of the movie that this is now a movie about... It's just jarring to me. I don't know about y'all, but...
Sybok comes off as pretty cool in some of like the earlier stuff when he is more mysterious. Like when they actually like capture the city. Again, I think this was like pretty well shot. When you have like the camera shows like all these raggedy guys like running up into the city, and you get like then like it cuts to them like outside of the gates, and you have like the Paradise Lost on the.
Oh, right.
On the
I think, like you were saying, if his mission was something better than finding God, I think I could have.
It's a great Star Trek mission.
It's not.
Well, that was Shatner's like original idea.
And we already did that. It was called Voyager.
Yeah, but that was disappointing too.
It was better than this.
There is an episode of the original series about finding the way to Eden. I think it was called The Way to Eden.
Oh, interesting.
And it was a very similar story to this. You have like a cultish type guy and his followers take over the Enterprise, and they go to the Promised Land, and it turns out to not be what they expected.
Huh.
And again, I thought the ending of that was the worst part of that episode, because it was just like, the apples are poisonous.
Well, the grass has acid.
The grass has acid.
And Rob Zombie sampled that because he thought that was pretty cool.
it is hard to pay off that kind of thing. But I feel like it's the kind of thing that shows like Trek can be good at, of using like big, giant subject matter to talk about, earthly
Well,
problems.
I mean, like, let's say we took the end. What's the Next Generation episode where we discover that everyone's genetically related?
I don't know the name
the hunt, the chase.
Yes, the chase. Okay. What if we'd had that as Sybok's quest at the end, and that was the punchline?
That would have been cool.
That would have been much better than what we got.
What's the punchline to that?
We're all genetically, all the
seeded,
Klingons, the Romulans, they're humans. They're all come from a central.
I do think that would be a more satisfying kind of final reveal type of story.
Yeah, and maybe we don't even know quite what we're going to find until we get there, but this is the origin of humanity, or the origin of all life or something. Stick with that instead of God, and then we have something we can actually say, oh, wow, look, there is something here. There's this alien who has this hologram, and they explain, use them together, use them in peace, and whatever. Something.
I think the payoff is dropped kind of clumsily, I guess.
For sure.
Yeah.
Before we get into the end of the movie, though, let's talk about like Nimbus 3 itself, with the actual like hostage situation and then like the rescue mission. And we have like the 3 ambassadors, and they're being kept in this seedy bar, which
is also the Capitol building.
I sort of like that.
I like that. I'm fine with that.
And someone thought it was a good idea to have a cat stripper lady with 3 boobs.
Canon.
I feel like the her badly animated tail, which it looks like I almost feel like you could see the string moving that like ratty tail around. It looks like it was knocked together by like a high school drama department in 5 minutes. It's just really terrible looking.
I love the pool that's actually played in a pool.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's
it's futuristic. I'm sure it's suspended in some sort of hollow liquid thing. But the ambassadors themselves are all kind of somewhat ridiculous has-beens. It's another
David
one of those
Warner
where
is totally wasted in this movie.
absolutely.
He'll get another shot though. He'll get another shot.
Saint John Talbot, which who the hell's name is Saint John? Is like your first name? Is he like a space saint? Like what the hell? That's dumb.
The basic idea though of them sort of rallying the kind of the older out of step burnouts at the end, I kind of like. It doesn't follow a strong thread or an arc that's really like set up earlier, but I still kind of like it. It's another one of those, in a better movie, the washout ambassadors kind of coming to showing their stuff a little bit at the end could have been better.
And again, the novelization gives an arc to the ambassadors as a whole. Cord kind of gets sidelined a bit, but builds them up to they are going to go back and they are going to fix Nimbus 3 now that this is over. Sybok has fixed them. They've given them new life, new purpose, and even if their god wasn't down on that planet, we are going to go back and we are going to fix Nimbus 3 together, the 3 of us.
I do,
and that was really cool in the novel. Yeah, if you like this movie at all, read the novelization because it's so much better a version of the same story. So
the notion of the Romulans, the Klingons, and the Federation trying to have like a little world where they could go to like have like peace conferences and negotiate and stuff like that, and then it just backfiring and turning into this shithole.
Doesn't David Warner say that they how was it? There was a native population.
The people we conned into coming here they were the dregs of the galaxy, and the novelization expands that it basically became like Australia, a prison colony where you want to go to Pente or Nimbus 3. Oh, I guess I'll take Nimbus 3. Right. So.
They've obviously got a great dental plan there.
Well, when they do their assault to go into Paradise City and rescue the hostages, we get to see the Marines on the shuttle, and they have the cool assault phasers that I really like.
Yep.
And
eventually Sulu gets to do a roll and fire with one of them that looks kind of cool.
Yeah. Before we get into there, though, before they get into the city, they have to rustle up some horses.
Yep.
And that to me kind of felt like this is like silly Star Wars Western stuff.
Star Wars would not have had Leia get naked and dance in front of people to lure them off.
It seems like there's so many easier ways to lure people than to get her a half fucking naked, dancing around with like feather things that she brought with her, and I don't know.
Well, I think there are like palm leaves.
Yeah, I think it was
from, like, a tree
the idea,
that,
at least in the novelization, is that's an oasis, a water pumping station that pumps water into the city,
okay.
and there are some trees there because there's actually some water there, but you don't really see that on screen, and I don't know how much credit to give the novelist and how much to the script for that mess.
The Uhura fan dance is terrible, and it's one of the several things in this movie I find pretty unforgivable.
Does anybody know behind the scenes, like, Nichelle Nichols was a dancer? Is that right?
Well, she was a singer. I mean, she might have done like some dancing on stage, but she's known for like having like a good singing voice,
right?
And they actually dubbed over her and got someone else to do the singing in this movie, which really pissed her off.
Yeah,
I was wondering, did she enjoy doing the scene? The actress, not regardless of whether it works, did she have fun?
I have no idea. I can't imagine.
It seems like the kind of thing that could have been one of those like just so different that I would read about like next generation actors liking to do any sort of scenes that were off the bridge, that were outside in natural environments, because it was just kind of liberating and it was fresher air and all this. So I was like, maybe she had fun. Maybe she's like, oh, I like to dance. This is a kind of campy scene, but I still got to dance.
And just like watching this as a kid, the first time I saw this, I was 8, and like at that age, like anything
interesting fetish time to develop.
No, like anything sexual with like people like over 50 is just like totally disgusting. And that just like really like just like grossed me out. I was like, oh my god, she is way too old to be doing this. I was like, like fuck this, like fuck these guys that are like aroused by her. They're like running up the sand dune, being like, damn, she naked. like fuck all of that. I hate that.
Maybe it's that dumb. Is the most telling quality of what life is like on Nimbus 3. If they see that and they're like, oh my god.
Not to be ageist. Not to be ageist. There's
I think she's a lovely woman.
You're describing young Fatheree, not your mature self who would jerk off to it.
Yeah. Like, well, yeah, fine.
That's what I'm doing later when we're done recording this.
By the way, I wanted to say, the one character who I think kind of made out really well in that scene and who kind of seems to be sort of taking this seriously is Chekhov.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
He got to run the ship and actually takes it scene pretty seriously and kind of has some of the more reined-in acting in a very overacted movie.
Yeah, he is distracting Sybok. He is...
That's a good scene.
He's playing the ship captain, trying to negotiate with Sybok to cause a distraction for the others.
They take a bet that this Vulcan who was raised on Vulcan can't recognize that he's wearing commander bars and not captain bars.
Well, the Starfleet uniform changes so often that...
At that point, it had been around for a few years, but... And if it was a human or something, fine, but it's a Vulcan. They're pretty good at those little details.
It would have been cool if if that had been like something that he saw through, that they were like, we got to do this ruse quick. Yeah. It is the kind of like minor continuity that, generally speaking, big action-y type movies just pave over small details like that. But it would have been kind of cool to show off Sybok's intelligence and have him say like,
I just want to put Chekhov in a white collar and a white stripe and the captain's bar. Yeah. Sell it. If we're really going to make this work. But
when they're breaching the city walls, I like seeing the what you were mentioning earlier with Sulu, with his cool little action beat he gets when he takes out that light. The assault phasers have blue beams, which I love, and I kind of enjoyed that right up until the moment when Spock says, "Hold your horse, Captain," and
it needs
makes
a
me want to
tuba
yell.
I was fine with that one.
Or sad trombone.
Because Spock, I could easily see Spock saying that without realizing he's making some sort of joke. So
that is cool when he nerve pinches the horse, though.
Yeah.
I like that.
Do you really?
Yeah.
No, it's interesting.
Why, do you not like that?
No, that's hokey as hell.
Vulcan nerve pinch, I don't have a problem with it working on... We've seen it work on a variety of species.
The whole film franchise needs more nerve pinches.
If you think about like how many different aliens there are in Star Trek, like it works on a variety of creatures.
I feel like he's like trained up on hominid type creatures but not.
I will say in my role playing game when you use nerve pinch on an alien that's different from stock humanoid, there's a hefty modifier for making that roll. So, but I could also believe Spock could make it. He rolled.
Father, you know the big creature
20.
that chased after him on the ice planet in Trek 09?
Yeah, you should have like old Nimoy, like 80.
You gotta like grab it like around the neck like this.
Like he like flips up there like
takes his jet boots
Like,
and just...
Legolas?
like CGI Christopher Lee in Attack of the Clones. Like, if you want to see like a cartoon senior citizen flipping through the air like a superhero.
That's what Trek 09 needed. CG old man Spock.
Nerve pinching a giant CGI.
But speaking of fighting like strange space creatures, anyone who is frustrated with the three-breasted cat lady, you get to watch Shatner possibly like murder her. It's kind of weird.
Oh yeah, like she falls in a tank of water and seems to be unconscious.
He's just gonna let her drown in there, I guess.
Yeah, it's a little disturbing, and then just like walks away and she's just floating.
Yeah.
He committed a murder there.
But yeah, then it turns out the hostages they've been drinking the Sybok Kool-Aid.
Yep.
So Sybok attempts to capture the Enterprise. They're flying up to the ship, and this is another thing that bugs me is that Chekhov gets a little too comfortable in his role as the acting captain because he starts giving like Scotty orders. Like no, like Scotty outranks Chekhov. He's always like gotten command of the Enterprise before Chekhov. Like that was really weird.
Clearly, the second officer of the ship.
When Chekhov tells Scotty keep the shields up, like we can't risk letting the shuttle land.
Yeah.
Why is there any stated reason why Scotty didn't get command of the ship?
Because they wanted to give Walter Koenig that scene like negotiating with Sybok.
All right, so only. Why did they want to give it to him? Out of curiosity, why not have Scotty be the guy?
I don't know, because they were giving James Doohan the flirty relationship with Uhura.
He was busy.
When you got a scene that good, you don't get to get any
We're
other
giving you
scenes.
gold here,
Because Doohan was slightly higher on Shatner's shit list than Koenig was
true.
when the script was written.
That's his only list is a shit list.
Yeah,
It's just...
actually, like outside of Nimoy and DeForest Kelly, I think Walter Koenig hated Shatner the least out of these actors and got along with him the best. But one thing that I've heard is that Shatner was kind of oblivious that people disliked him and thought he was a jerk. And he found out about it like in this movie. And so he was trying to be nicer to these people.
Koenig did notice that. He went in, oh God, Shatner's going to be directing me. This is going to be so bad. I'm going to hate it. Oh, he's so nice and supportive and friendly. And it was one of my most wonderful experiences in all of Star Trek. You know, he was very open about how wrong he was about how bad, what it would be like to be directed by
Interesting
Shatner.
backstory. Might be more interesting than the actual story. So shall we jump to Sybok's takeover of the ship?
Yeah, and the shuttle shooting in there, and it's like a cartoon shuttlecraft. But they get on board, and Sybok has like that fight with Kirk where they're like tussling in the shuttle bay. And I do like that they actually remember in this movie that Vulcans are stronger than humans, because that is so often forgotten.
Yes.
But then you have Spock has the gun, and he has it like pressed up to Sybok's chest, and Kirk is yelling, "Shoot him!" and Spock doesn't do it. And that is kind of weird because...
See, I like the idea of that scene, but the execution just makes it feel wrong. It should be a huge moment like, why didn't Spock shoot? And instead it comes off as, what's going on? I'm confused.
He could have like shot him in the leg before Sybok like walked up there and pressed his chest against the gun. And even then, like we know Vulcans don't have their hearts in their chest from the original series. Yeah. So I think you still could like...
The novelization fixes that. He aims at the liver, but...
I would say if they had him like try to take a leg shot and then get blocked by Sybok, who was close enough at that point or something. That said, it did lead to a scene I liked where Kirk is chewing him out and McCoy, in a weird case, stands up for Spock and said, "Hey, that literally is his brother. He could not shoot him." Yeah. It seems like that because I think McCoy would think that way.
But we get our three main heroes in the brig. We get the reveal that Sybok is another son of Sarek. Scotty, here's why Scotty
was supposed to be the mother of Sarek and the
a Vulcan princess.
Oh, that's right. They did mention
mother
that.
of Sybok, which is stupid that there's monarchy on Vulcan.
Yeah.
Do they like
the novelist again changes that to priestess instead of
was
princess.
It supposed to be before his marriage to Amanda?
Yes.
Concurrent with? Is he poly? What's the deal?
Before, I think is. I think they state that in the movie. They certainly make it very clear in the novel because she decided to go off and do Kolinar or whatever, and so that was the end of that marriage. So.
But Scotty gets his cool moment here, I guess, when he does like the what are you standing around for? Don't you know a jailbreak when you see one?
Yeah, because there were no guards on that cell. He couldn't just walk in the door and hit the button and open the little thing.
It's much cooler to blow a hole in a wall. So, sometimes I will give the movies that it's just cooler.
I mean, they took over the whole ship with like 7 people.
It's kind of doofy how they're translating the Morse code and they're like real obvious about it. It's like, get...
No, it's stand back.
A, C, what?
Yeah.
Well,
Stand back.
That's the... Almost every line in this movie is a bit of a cliche, a line you have heard before in other films. And that's, once you start looking for it, you're like, I've heard that line, but there's almost no lines that you haven't heard dozens of times before in other movies. And this is why McCoy is the only actor who I think works, is because McCoy is kind of always spoken in cliches. Mm-hmm. That's kind of his default setting, is to grumble cliches. So he makes it work, but everyone else talking in cliches just sucks the life out of the scene.
Well, speaking of McCoy, I think this is the central, some of the best acting I think DeForest Kelley has done is when Sybok sort of opens him up.
Yes.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
And maybe the best scene in the movie?
Yeah,
I think so.
Just before we jump in on that, I do have to say that Scotty was so cool right until he walked into that bar across the ceiling and knocked himself out like a buffoon.
Yeah, well,
this is terrible.
Shatner didn't want Doohan looking too cool.
Yeah. So then after that, they go into that really cool set there. I guess like the Enterprise A's version of the 10 Forward.
Yeah.
Which is in like the front of the saucer, and there was actually a reuse of the Next Generation 10 Forward set. They use a lot of Next Generation sets in this movie because that show was on.
I think that was a new set. It certainly, the shape, the floor plan is very different anyway.
I thought they built that inside of the 10 Forward.
In fact, I don't think 10 Forward... Did 10 Forward exist?
Yes, that was in season 2.
Okay, but yeah, it looks really different. The windows are different, the walls are different, the location of the door is different. I mean, I don't know what they kept if that's supposed to be 10 Forward, but...
I don't know. You might be right, but I think I've read that was like built in part of the 10 Forward set.
Inspired by, I can easily see, but
that might be it.
Yeah,
but that's a really cool room. Their observation lounge that has that ship wheel that says "Where no man has gone before," which is the. Well, I take that back. I was going to say that's the last time someone says "Where no man has gone before" in Star Trek, and
before it becomes "Where no one has gone."
Yeah, and no one had already been introduced on TNG, but
right.
Zefram Cochrane brings it back on Enterprise with man instead of one, but then Sybok comes in there, and we have like the moments where he makes each one of the characters. Where he attempts to make each one of them like face their pain and drink the Sybok.
When they get on board, he's already kind of put the whammy on Sulu and like Uhura, and Chekhov is like, "What's going on?" But this is the only time, other than the opening sequence, where we kind of see him do his thing.
Yeah, and this is by far like the
I like
best.
how they did it where they pan over as if the vision the memory that McCoy is having, almost as if it's occurring in the room. Yeah. And it does seem as if Spock and Kirk experience it with him, at least on some psychic level.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's obviously conveyed.
Yeah.
But the tonal shift there gets like so dark and so serious.
Yeah.
It is a little jarring. But again, since this is like some of the best
the
stuff in the movie,
been shitty. Oh my god, this scene's good. Yeah, it's jarring, but in a good way.
This is where we find out that McCoy helped to euthanize his father from his painful terminal illness, only to have it cured within months.
And the line there, like, how do you write that? What do you have a character say? Like, you can't be like, "Let me die, son," or "Kill me." Like, what do you write that sounds good? And they simply have the line, "Release me."
Yeah.
And the actor who plays the father delivered it so well, and DeForest Kelley's reaction to it, and it kind of like explains like why this, like, what kind of pain does this guy have? Why he's always like so cantankerous and grumpy, and like it all works so well.
Yeah,
and he's the compassionate doctor, which is at the core of that character.
Yeah,
and the scene also has like the interesting thing that follows that, where Kirk talks about his need to hold on to his pain.
We gotta talk to Spock before Kirk.
All right.
But, with Spock, it was obviously going to be daddy issues.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that actor who plays young Sarek looks so much like him. The way that, like, they shot that without... We don't see, like, a good look at his eyes. They keep, like, his eyes in the shadows. But he looks how Sarek looked when he played the Romulan commander in Balance of Terror. Mm-hmm. And they actually got Mark Leonard to dub over the voice when he looks at the baby and says, "So human."
Yeah.
And so, like, that sells Sarek so much that it's awkward to watch that and then go back to Star Trek Discovery and see James Frain not be nearly as Sarek as this guy was.
The very warm Sarek of Discovery.
Well, it's just the like this guy feels so much like Mark Leonard.
Yeah.
But I
would argue that the Spock scene, the Spock vision, the Spock pain share, probably work. I think it works great if you're a Star Trek fan. I do wonder how well it would work for the casual audience, but in a movie like this, I'll just take whatever gem I can get, regardless of whether or not it was a wise move, commercial move.
But I do wish that Spock's reaction to that would be where he says, "Sybok, this isn't going to work on me. I guess you didn't see the last movie, but me and Dad worked things out. So I'm over this. I've moved past this."
Well, because the movie's about Kirk and not about Spock, even though Sybok is Spock's brother, and you'd think that would make it about Spock, but it doesn't. Because
they don't always spend the time to put that much continuity into the stuff. But for me, I would have enjoyed that more. But then we have Kirk.
Yeah, no, that would have definitely kicked it up a notch.
We have Kirk say he's not going to face his pain. He needs his pain. And I actually always liked this. As a kid, I always thought that was super cool.
I think it's a very Kirk thing to do. I also think that some of the stumbling he does in Star Trek 6 is because he didn't go through that process. I think if there's one thing Star Trek 6 or Star Trek 5 could be seen as connective tissue to 6 and 3 that exists in this movie, it is that moment where Kirk does not let go of his pain.
Because we're assuming that pain would be the death of his son, David.
Yeah, and the novelization makes that explicit. But yes, and I think that makes the scene even better for me.
I dislike that because I don't think that drinking the Sybok Kool-Aid should be seen as a positive experience.
Well, I guess, admittedly, again, I'm colored by the novelization, which actually explains how it works. What it is it takes you to the deepest, darkest, most guilt-ridden part of your life, in the novel anyway, and it says, no, you're still a good person. You still have value. You still are worthwhile. You deserve to exist. You deserve to be whole.
It's the kind of thing that a real therapist would take months or years or decades teaching you, and somehow he can do it all at once. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Theoretically,
though Sybok abuses it horribly in a way that no proper psychologist ever would to manipulate people. But I can tell you firsthand knowledge that those experiences are incredibly profound and create an intensely strong bond with the person that you share them with. So I totally buy that it could be a very therapeutic thing. And then Sybok twists it and said, now I want you to do this for me. And that's where it becomes bad. But so I don't see the Sybok Kool-Aid inherently.
In a lot of ways, it seems like he wasn't really giving them too much agency in deciding how they wanted to deal with it. He was like, I will pluck this pain from you, and I'm telling you you're going to be a better person for it.
Yes.
And you just kind of got to roll with it. Yes. I think, in a more nuanced movie, they could have had a few discussions about this. Think parts of it that might be good, parts of it that are very clearly terrible.
Yeah.
But I love Kirk being a guy who's I don't need that. I know who I am. I know what I've done.
That is Kirk.
I now that I'm talking about this, this might sound a little silly, but I think I might have actually, Kid Fatheree might have actually been influenced by this movie. Maybe that was the one positive thing I took out of this. Because I feel now if I came face to face with this, I'd be no, I got my shit together. I know where I've messed up before. I don't need that erased. If anything, I've learned to learn from that.
He doesn't.
Yeah, but that's
you're making assumptions.
The movies have to be judged kind of on their own because of how they make them.
I mean, in the interest of finding something good in 5, 6 makes this part of 5 more interesting.
I think that's a well taken point. That it seems like some of Kirk's weaknesses are because of that, or he at least acts the way he does because he couldn't find it in his heart to forgive himself.
I like to believe that he's the guy who actually did have a handle on his pain.
Arguably he still does do the right thing in 6 too.
Yes, but he also says let them die.
It's a more circuitous way. But maybe more honest.
Yeah, I have something else to add to that, but we will talk about that in next week's podcast when we get to Star Trek 6. But y'all want to talk about the actual like approach
Finding of God
to Loughery and how somehow they managed to get their ship to go so fucking fast that it went on a course that would take the starship Voyager 24 years to go.
They did it in 7
It's funny.
hours.
That's the kind of thing that I don't really care about in the movies because they so routinely ignore everything that they do.
They have already
the
gone
show.
to the center of the universe in the cartoon series, and they found a godlike entity.
Well, they found the devil there.
Yeah,
Where was it that Gary Mitchell got his powers? What were they trying to breach?
That was the barrier to get out of the galaxy.
To get out of the galaxy?
Yeah. But the movies have never done anything this fucking stupid before or since, where you go that far that fast.
I tend to judge them more on story than on technical, or than on the hardness of their sci-fi.
I was more bugged by the fact that the Great Barrier turns out to be a nothing, and so what? All those probes didn't have faith. No probe has ever returned.
Yeah, and we know now that like the center of the galaxy is actually like a big black hole, right? So none of this makes sense with like.
You could argue
science.
the black hole is a prison, but I also don't think you can dock a movie that's always a series that's never been hard science with not having guessed what science would be like in 2019.
Yeah, well, they kind of knew that they suspected a black hole at the center of the Milky Way by the time this.
I mean, what do you call it? Nebulas don't work the way they worked in Wrath of Khan, and they knew that when they made Wrath of Khan.
Yeah,
and it's still super badass, and I forgive them because it's a cool.
That
scene.
was a nebula. You can't have an alternative center of the galaxy. That's like an actual like specific thing.
Nebulas are specific things too.
Yeah.
They don't function even remotely like they did in that one. To me, it's all the
nebula
same.
is just a cloud of particles. Like it could. There's more leeway there.
Yeah, but
I
they
will say-
span like millions of like miles.
We don't know how big the Matari Nebula was.
I will say I think the center of the galaxy thing is a bigger gaffe than the Matari Nebula.
Sure.
But
it's the farthest thing from my problem. With
if
the
they
movie.
had got
that's
everything
insane.
else right in the movie, we wouldn't give a shit about the fact that they went to the center of the universe.
Well, we should talk about like when they actually come face to face with the god creature.
Yep.
Um,
It's a scene. Here. I'm going to just jump in and say I like the scene on the basis of like if it feels like something that could have happened in a Star Trek episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it works kind of on that small level. It doesn't function on the big level it needs to be a really satisfying movie experience. But I still kind of like it. I like the slow burn anger of the god and Sybok's fall from like enthusiasm to crestfallen.
I do like Sybok doing his last minute redemption there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Sybok is actually one of the best Star Trek movie villains. He's the most unique.
I did like. So this is one of the other big things that why I kind of like the ending of the movie is because he does the unusual thing of like not of like, hey, I'm giving you control of the ship back. I'm giving you, letting you have complete power over me. I think you need to see this as much as I do. I don't know if I 100% buy that Kirk would go along with it and not just throw him in the brig. But as far as like being an unusual villain turn, it's pretty interesting.
But I'm going to disagree with you that the climax works because I think it's so anticlimactic to see that there's nothing at Loughery except for like some desert shot with a purple filter on a camera.
Yeah,
it feels small, and that's why I liken it to the TV series.
And at this point, like they were supposed to be like rock monsters and cool shit, but.
You know the line that everybody remembers is, of course,
what does God need with the starship?
Right.
And people make fun of that, but I actually like that because that's what Kirk should say in that situation.
Right, and I also I like what precedes it. It's like in a way it's Kirk as every kid in Sunday school. Anybody who ever asked a question and got a ruler smack on the knuckles. His pardon me, or does he say excuse me or pardon me or whatever? Like here's a guy communing with God seemingly, and he's like, whoa. And feels very Kirk to me too.
Yeah,
is that you should be able to you should question anything.
I think the characters perform the scene well. It's just not the scene that should be. We needed something better than that scene to pay off this movie.
I can agree with that.
Yeah. So, yes, that's Kirk. Yes, that's Spock. Yes, that's McCoy. They're doing their thing, and even Sybok is doing his thing. But this is not the scene that wraps it up.
Trent, what did you think of the ending?
Yeah, I think that there's a version of it that was definitely better. Right after that, what does God need with a starship? And then it's just followed up with, what is it? You don't ask the Almighty for his ID.
I hate that. Like, Dr. McCoy has never been portrayed as, like, a religious guy before. Like, he even calls, like, the Bible creation story myth in Star Trek 2.
Yeah.
So I hate him here being, like, a little bit of God-fearing. I it's kind of a betrayal of the character.
His inner Southerner came out.
It could have been a way to warn Kirk that maybe this guy's going to kill us all if you don't
I think
stop
it
pissing
always,
him off.
I think it worked for me on that level
you.
of, that was just how he phrased it, kind of maybe having grown up with some Southern traditions or whatever.
Yeah. But
when they fire a photon at God, is it the old school photon sound effect? I believe.
I don't think so, but there are some.
It sounded
old school,
very close to it.
There's some old school
like
sound
TOS.
I'm pretty sure it's not. We can double check because I'm curious now. But there are some old school sound effects when they're back on the shuttle, and I gotta say the sound effects of this movie are actually really good. Like when God is shot and then like he disappears, but like you hear like that howl where he's like, oh
yeah,
like it's kind of like creepy.
Yeah,
and I get kind of scared for Kirk, but. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, like, the whole threat of the villain kind of seems not that menacing when they do, like, dispatch him pretty easily. Like
sure.
the Enterprise and a Bird of Prey shoot at him a couple times and he's seemingly gone. Or at least, like, no longer a threat.
yes.
With a little bit of explanation, and I imagine the novel probably got into this in some way about him having been, lost power from having been imprisoned there, and that the shot that takes him out from the Klingon ship is... it's ridiculous who the gunner is. It's like the dumbest thing ever. But if they were like, well, we need somebody who can compute, really in real time, the weak spots on him.
None of that was in the novel, by the way. Just for what for the.
But that is cool.
Did Spock still make the shot?
Yes, Spock makes the shot. If everything that happens in the movie happens in the novel, it's just sometimes tweaked a little.
I would have thought they would have mentioned something with that one.
I do like when Spock tells General Cord or Ambassador Cord that you got to try to get a hold of this Klingon, and he says, "Damn it, sir, you will try."
Yeah.
He remembered how to curse from Star Trek 4.
Yeah.
And he's gotten pretty good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I noticed there's a lot of goddams in this movie. They say it 3 or 4 times over the course of the movie. It was just kind of interesting. I don't know whether that was intentional since they're going to have an evil god in it, or just the particular manner of swearing that happened to get through then.
And in the Peter David comic adaptation that DC put out, when they're on Nimbus 3 on the attack on Paradise City, so one of Sybok's guys says to Spock something like, "Oh, I'll kill you all," and Spock says, "The hell you will," and does I think he nerve pinches them or something like that. But and then on that Bird of Prey we get that super stupid forced apology from Captain Claw.
Yeah,
he's acting like a little kid in trouble whose mom is like, "Now say you're sorry," but
just in case you didn't think he was the stupidest Star Trek villain ever, we're going to give him a scene where he looks even worse.
Quick opinions on a line that I think is hokey but still makes me laugh. The "Sir, please, not in front of the Klingons."
Oh yeah,
it works. I think if they drop the apology, you can kind of get away with the hug, though you still need to rationalize why Spock's even there.
Yeah,
but
and one last dumb thing I got to call out on this was when they're all drinking and celebrating, and Scotty's like, "I never thought I'd be drinking with a Klingon." It's like, you were at a bar with Klingons and the trouble with tribbles, fool.
I guess, but he was drinking very grudgingly there, and here we presume
at a different table.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. And Sulu was he was getting he had his eyes on, what was her name? Vixus.
Vixus.
Yeah, the Klingon woman. So Sulu of the Prime Timeline. I think Sulu is just a bisexual.
That's what I would say.
Can I just say, maybe, what if he was just admiring her outfit? Just a thought.
They were actually admiring her muscles. They were honest. It wasn't about.
Yeah, that's what he said, right?
That's what Chekhov says. He has wonderful muscles, and they read Playboy for the articles. So.
Right. So the ending, you get a kind of sweet scene of the recurrence of the campfire thing.
row your boat.
Yeah. Which would have been a great bookend for a better movie.
What if this had been the end of the film series and we didn't see the TOS people again after this? That would have been disappointing.
I would have to go buy some novels that had a better ending.
The sort of hippie wisdom of like maybe God is in here would have been pretty rough as the ending to Star Trek. But it's as a scene of three longtime friends enjoying their company. It's sweet. I know my sister-in-law has a big fondness for this movie. She's kind of a serious Star Trek fan, but like in a more casual way, where the character relationships are like the main thing she tunes in for. And so I think this has actually always been a movie she liked a little bit more as a result of that than most people.
As a more like casual fan, though, like
exactly,
she doesn't like read Memory Alpha articles or like look at star charts.
Probably not.
No.
Any of that.
I will say there's one thing this movie might do better than any other. Certainly, it's in the top echelon. I think it has the best soundtrack, or the second best soundtrack of any Star Trek movie.
Jerry Goldsmith's score does do a lot of the heavy lifting in this movie.
Well, he can't lift it. It's like lifting diarrhea, just slips through your fingers. But the soundtrack, divorced from the movie, is gorgeous. Yeah. I love that soundtrack.
A lot of these scenes play better with that music.
It's certainly whatever help you can get, it gives it.
When they reach Loughery, and they're really just like walking up a hill, and then they walk down a hill.
Yeah.
And everything is purple because there is a filter on the camera. But because you have that score, it does feel a little bit more special than what it actually is.
Yeah.
There's a scene early on, I don't know if it's like when he takes over on Nimbus 3 or it like shows up with the armed guards and stuff, with his followers, where there's like this kind of cool tribal drum music, and I was like, oh man, that's a little almost callback to his old Planet of the Apes soundtrack. Yeah. It's not a big part of the whole movie, but it was just right in that moment, and I was like, oh, that was cool.
And his Klingon score from the motion picture makes a return.
Yeah.
But I think we do need to wrap it up, though. But we did get some responses on social media on this movie. So, Dave, what do we have in our subspace transmissions?
First up, we've got from Facebook a comment from a frequent commenter, Adam B. Owen.
Hi, Adam.
Says the scene with Dr. McCoy and his father is priceless, one of the best scenes in all of Trek. I think some of its failings come from its budget being cut, and of course Shatner not exactly loving the franchise at that point in his life, or the role of director. Yeah. I think that's probably true.
Yeah, he was more interested in making a hero goes to face God movie than another chapter in the Star Trek saga.
I'm going to jump over to Twitter here. I can't read the full name of this because I'm just looking at a screenshot of it, but this is from an unofficial Hugo Award something ... He or she writes, the fan scene. That's the worst moment. But also, the Planet of Galactic Peace is a premise with a lot of promise. But it's dealt with so shoddily. They introduce the three ambassadors and do nothing with those characters. It's a frustrating movie filled with awful moments.
I have done a lot with Nimbus 3 in my role-playing game. There's a lot of meat there.
Every once in a while, like, a bad movie can be mined by either, I guess, in the world of fan fiction or the world of role-playing games or anything, where fan creativity can kind of try and take a shot at it.
Or even some like the official release novels can... I know David Mack used Nimbus 3 in one of his Vanguard books, so...
Let's see. Here's another Twitter name that I cannot quite read. Star Trek versus Star Wars.net, something like that. ST versus SW.net, I guess. Who writes, Star Trek V has plot issues, execution problems, continuity and Trek tech problems, and so on, yet it's not nearly so bad as is claimed. It's a darn good TOS Season 3 episode. And he says, moreover, it has some of the best lines, what does God need with a starship?
I don't know about a good Season 3 TOS episode.
Average Season 3 episode.
There's some gems in Season 3.
That's why I said average. Yeah. There's the good TNG, good Season 3s are better.
Dan Gunther tweets, last time I watched, one thing I noticed is that whenever Kirk is on screen, he's being amazing, and when he's not, characters are talking about how amazing he is. Got really irritating. However, I do love the Bone Spot Kirk camping scenes. Nice character bits for them.
Thanks, Dan. Y'all can subscribe to his channel at Kurt Traps Productions or follow him on the Literary Treks podcast. He's a really great Star Trek fan to listen to and get his take on stuff. I'm
going to round this out with a very short one from Ross Okoye, who tweets, don't make us revisit this for the love of God.
That's all part of it. That's part of the Tex-Trek voyage.
Maybe God is in here.
Oh, why are we doing this podcast? That's full circle.
That's indigestion. That's acid reflux.
Well, but I think that's enough said about this. Of course, if you have any opinions on Star Trek V, be sure to let us know. Also, be sure to check us out next week when we are talking about the last TOS crew movie, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. And after that, we'll be jumping straight into the TNG era movies with Star Trek Generations and Star Trek First Contact. So if you have any interesting opinions or comments or questions that you want to bring to our attention before we talk about those movies,
the transition from TOS to TNG is definitely an interesting era.
Yeah, let us know what you think about that, and we might be using your responses in future Tex-Trek content. But as always, we'll be back next Sunday, and until then, live long and prosper, y'all. Thank all of you so much for checking out this installment of Tex-Trek. I hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to like our YouTube videos and subscribe to our channel. Audio-only version of episodes are available at our website, www.tex-trek.com. Please check out our site, especially if you just want an audio-only podcast. We have that available for you. Y'all can also keep up with us online. You can follow us on Twitter at TXTrek, or you can check us out on Facebook at www.facebook.com/tex-trek. Please, by all means, let us know what you think by dropping a comment anywhere you see fit. We definitely want to hear your feedback. Let us know what you liked and what you would like to see more of, what you would like to see differently going forward. If you want to email me directly, go ahead. I can be reached at fathereeactual@tex-trek.com. Thank all y'all again. Take care.